And now we go to our next speech, which will be made by Melissa King. She is co-founder and leads Healthspan Action Coalition, a large non-governmental organization in the United States that advocates for longevity and lobbies for politics. She was instrumental in the creation of California Institute for Regenerative Medicine. Melissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm so happy to be following Dr. Loring. Jean and I go back more than 20 years now, and her work is incredible. And a lot of it, I can say, has happened during the time that I've known her, and I can even say that I helped found, although she helped even before I did, an agency in California that funded some of her work, which I will talk about. But as you can imagine, it's also relatively difficult to follow Jean, so bear with me. All right, so Martin told you who I am. I co-founded an organization, the Healthspan Action Coalition. That's a mouthful, so we're all going to say it 3 times fast. Just kidding. So what I like to do, because I often get these questions, is just define. And I guess for the people that are online, I'm not usually a slide reader, but I will read these 2 definitions in case there's anybody online who, for one reason or another, can't see the slides. So what exactly is Healthspan? At least I'm speaking here to with a group of people and at a conference being put on by an organization that talks about Healthspan. So that's good. Often it's still the term longevity that is used. And I think we all have a good idea what longevity is, but really people don't know what we mean by Healthspan. So it is the period of a person's life spent in good health, free from chronic diseases and functional limitations, emphasizing the quality of your life. And what is healthy longevity? Well, extending the healthy years of life, not just in total years lived, which is longevity, but also to achieve a state where well-being, both physical and mental is of course important for physical and vice versa, is maintained throughout a longer life. Concepts of interest to my organization that I'm focused on right now are redefining the goal of medicine. We heard the wonderful talk on spermidine that included the comment that much of biomedical research right now is focused on specific diseases rather than on longevity or health span. We do need to get beyond that, although when it comes to funding, I don't care where it comes from. If you want Huntington's disease to be cured and you want to give millions of dollars to research, please do. It might help us with longevity, and research into longevity might help us cure Huntington's disease. So let's grow the pie. And also something that came up in the talk, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name, Professor or Doctor. Anya. So let's just say Anya. She also talked about the economic longevity dividend. And this is a really, really important concept when you're someone like me who comes at this from a layperson's background. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I'm a patient advocate, and I am a policy-focused individual, for lack of a better term. And if you can talk about the economics, whether it's with government officials elected or appointed or with people that you need to vote for something, this is a conversation that they might be willing to have, even if they don't understand the science, or if you live in the US right now, there are a lot of people who just don't like scientists, right? But if you can tell them, but their work, even if you don't like them, I love them, but even if you don't like them, their work, if we just cure one of the diseases that is associated with aging, pick Parkinson's, that will save us billions of dollars to use for anything else, whether it's the government funding the research, but also the healthcare for the people that end up with these diseases. And even in the US, where people go bankrupt because someone in their family has one of these diseases, and they, some people have less insurance than others, or they just don't have any insurance and their family just goes bankrupt by the time they unfortunately pass away. Or if they're already having the government pay for their health care. We do have a group of people, although it's shrinking now, I won't go into that, for whom the government covers their health care, unlike Slovenia, which it's for everybody, which is wonderful, in my opinion. But the economic longevity dividend, we start to derive those dividends when the treatments, the interventions get better, and people either don't need as much help as they live out their lives, or we don't spend tons of money on them for like 2 more weeks of their lives and then they die anyway. So let's start achieving that economic longevity dividend, and I have some ideas how. So where are we now? Well, I've already kind of alluded to this. It's definitely a time of concern for science in the US. And again, I'm not a slide reader. I hope you can see the slides, most of you that are joining online, but if not, just generally, if you think about what's going on in the US right now, funding sources for science are threatened right now, period. So what do we need to do? What I'm used to doing is building a movement behind something. And I've done that in the state of California on a project that Jean advised before I was even part of it, thankfully. And I believe that now is the time to build a societal movement behind Healthspan, behind this. And these feel out of order to me, but I'm going to go with it. My organization, the Healthspan Action Coalition, amplifies the voices of a cross-sector of lots of different types of people and organizations, including scientists, like those that you've heard from in the talks thus far. And then also other people like my friends Didier and Alex who are here that I'm collaborating with on various things as well. I would say that my co-founder and I and our colleagues have seen what the public can do when you bring them along with you for this ride. And for example, we've gotten a couple of propositions passed in California that going all the way back to Prop 71 in 2005, that's the ballot initiative. So lots of text that needed to be put together to do this thing of creating a state agency with state money in California to fund research, which is relatively rare, and that's what Dr. Loring advised the creators of this initiative on before I even started working on the campaign. And what we did ultimately ended up spread across 2 initiatives that were divided by 15 years. Her work started to be funded in the earlier years, but it resulted in a total of $8.5 billion in research for stem cell and regenerative medicine research, and now, of course, combined with gene therapy. So this is what we need more of. We need more patient advocacy, public policy. We need the public to be better informed, and we need to collaborate. And I know that you at least believe some of that because you're here today. So actually, I want to go back a slide. Don't look at that. So before I bring up the next slide, let me just ask you, and don't tell me the answer, just think about this. If I just put up a slide that had a big pink ribbon on it, how many of you would know exactly what that means? Who knows what the pink ribbon is? Okay, so that's most of you. It might even be all of you. You're just not quite sure where I'm going with this yet. You're like, pink ribbons, is this for little girls? No. So what has patient advocacy brought us in the past? I've already told you about the initiatives in California. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but HIV/AIDS advocates in the US coming out of the LGBTQ community, whatever it was called back then, it had fewer initials. They are the ones that made it the case that we funded HIV/AIDS research in the first place. And in order to do that, they had to do things like throw the ashes of people that had died of AIDS on the lawn of the White House and throw coffins onto the steps of state capitol buildings to make sure that that money flowed. And the Susan G. Komen Foundation is a result of something similar. Susan G. Komen died of breast cancer in the late 80s. Her sister Nancy said, this isn't great because in Congress, they do a lot of prostate cancer research. And why do you think that is? Because most of the people in Congress for decades, really going all the way back to the beginning, were men. Yes, they were also white men. That's a different discussion, but they were men. And there wasn't a lot of biomedical research focused just on women, and breast cancer was starting to grow. And it continues to, unfortunately, but a lot more money goes into the research. And I now, in the time since I met Jean, I have become a breast cancer survivor. And among other things, the reason that I didn't have chemotherapy, I was very lucky, it was caught early, great, I won't go into other details, but there was an assay that was available just for the 6 months before my diagnosis that made it the case that they didn't use chemotherapy for me because they knew from that assay that it wasn't valuable enough to mitigate the risks involved. So I didn't have chemo because I didn't really need it, and the risks were higher than the benefits that I would have achieved. But if I had been diagnosed 6 months earlier, that assay wasn't available because people like Jean and Anya hadn't done their work yet for that particular assay, which is why I'm so interested in funding the work, as you can see. Now it's personal. So, public policy is a constant effort. We've already had a question about ARPA-H. I knew that Didier was interested in that. You've heard about CIRM. That's that California Institute I talked about. Right now, my organization is focused on an act. It's not, I can't really say it's an act yet. It's not a bill yet. But we are working with the Catalyst Group, a group of people that are consultants that have worked at places like the FDA, scientists that were there running the teams that, for example, brought the statins through the FDA, and some lawyers that were part of that whole effort as well. We are hoping that this will become a bill and will move through the U.S. Congress, although things are a bit confusing in Washington right now. But we're trying to work with what we have and hope to move this through and to come up with a regulatory pathway that is specific to longevity and health span. So stay tuned on that. And these I'm going to go through very, very quickly, but I know, Didier, I'm referring to you again. We had a conversation last night about right to try. It gets very, very detailed and confusing, but the FDA has for decades now had the expanded access program, and we usually call that compassionate use in the vernacular. People that are very, very sick can access something that's in the FDA regulatory pathway, meaning clinical trials are happening after a phase 1 trial because we want to know it's safe. We don't really know that much other than it is safe. But that's not quite enough. So there is work being done now, and you can see just by looking at the information on the slide, people started to really advocate for right to try in 2013. It took until 2018 for a federal act to get passed and signed by the president into law. Imagine trying to do that right now. And, you know, still it needs to be tweaked. So what's happening? People are trying to tweak it at the state level. They've recently done this in Montana, and perhaps frighteningly so to some people now. Any patient in Montana, not someone with a grave illness, any patient, me, I can walk in and say my knee hurts, fix it. I don't care if it's experimental. Some of us might get a little worried about that. Florida used to have a right to try law that was only focused, like the FDA's compassionate use, on terminally ill patients. But this year, they passed a bill at the state level in Florida. It still has some guardrails, which is a good thing. But at the same time, the fact that now, and it's specific to stem cells, which is really Jean's territory and our friend from Gaia's territory. But so more people can access stem cells, but again, it has some guardrails. I don't want to get into the discussion about it. I'd rather have the experts talk about that than me. But just to give you an idea of how interesting this is to Americans, and then actually also all over the world. And I'm really not going to read these, but for the people listening from home, definitely some activity in Europe on this, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, in Asia as well. Lots of people around the world want to access stuff before it is through whatever regulatory pathway they have. And these are difficult conversations because it isn't just about my right to try something. There's a whole lot of other things involved that have to be considered when you're talking about science and putting something in the human body. If you're in the tech industry, yeah, go ahead and try it. Nobody's going to die. You just might not become a billionaire. But if you're putting something in a person's body, you can kill them or maim them or whatever it is. So Africa, Latin America, the Middle East, yes, even there they're talking about this. Okay, so what can you do given all of this? Think about the things that public funding for science alone has brought us. For example, going into space in the first place so that now, decades later, Dr. Loring can send stem cells in space. I don't know if anyone ever watched Pigs in Space. All right. So, but private industry will not come in very early because the projects are too risky. And what does private industry want to do, whether it's pharma or venture capital or even private equity? They want to make money. That's what they care about. Even if they geek out about the science, they need to make money for one reason or another. Companies are beholden to their shareholders. Certainly a venture firm, they only exist to make money, okay? So, and then there are also policies that can either enable, whether it's funding policy or regulatory policy or even other types of policies, it will either enable or block science once it's made. Usually a policy isn't made to be neutral on something. So you can stay well informed about science, even if you're a lay person like me. I can't quite give Jean's stem cell talk, but I can come pretty close. And you can help support specific public policy when it is within your purview. And you can decide what your purview is. Maybe it's your city, maybe it's your country, maybe it's your region of the world. But you, as someone who at least has shown some curiosity, and you're probably actually even more than curious. Some of you are probably scientists, early career scientists, doctors, maybe philosophers that are very interested in all this. Stay informed on the science and the policy. And I know I'm almost at time, so I will quickly move to a close on something that is near and dear to my organization, my co-founder and I, Bernie. Healthspan is a human right. And maybe we already have that because, and I'll skip ahead just a little bit right here, great. The UDHR includes something that really is, if you read what it says, related to your health span. If you have health and well-being, that is, sure, but if you, the social determinants of health, if you have the food, clothing, housing, and medical care available to you that everybody else does, at least within reason, your health span will be longer. We're not really there now. This was declared quite a while ago, but we're definitely not there if you look around the world. But it does continue to be a thread that's pulled, and you'll hear more about this from Alex, but through other treaties. So how do we do this? It isn't just aspirational. There is a roadmap for it. And see, there's where you are mentioned, Alex. I did put you in there. But we have to build a cross-sectional coalition, which is, of course, why my organization exists. And then we have to galvanize other people behind it, which is why communicating with the public about it is just as important as doing the thing, doing the science, treating the people as a doctor. You also have to get good policy through, and the way to do it is with a coalition that is very broad. We need the scientists and doctors to be involved, but we need others as well. And so I just have an example up there of stem cells. This is my co-founder, Bernie, who knows Jean quite well also. He was part of an effort that took through the United Nations an education process for the General Assembly that they intended to just change something that was moving through the UN, but instead, by asking the General Assembly to do something once they were educated about stem cells, which was go to the International Court of Justice and declare it a human right to be able to use stem cells, I guess, at the time. The treaty that was supposed to pass in the UN just never passed. It just got completely derailed, and it was a treaty that would have threatened SCNT, which you mentioned in your talk. It definitely, because that's right, it was a treaty about cloning. Human cloning, bad. So all human cloning, bad. But what about SCNT, right? That was the issue at hand at the time. And they did that by getting a group of people behind an effort to talk to the General Assembly, ask them to take an action, and instead they said, well, we don't even need this. We just don't need this because nobody's cloning human babies to clone a baby. They're doing it for therapeutic purposes. All right, so we do have a roadmap, and again, it involves you. Get involved, stay up on the science, help with policy. To actually get something declared a human right, there has to be a moral imperative. You've probably read about the students in the Pacific Islands because their home is actually sinking. And imagine that they believe it's due to climate change, which in the US right now, we don't know what that is. We can't talk about it. But they knew what it was because they don't even have a beach anymore, right? In some cases. So they actually got that done. They got climate change to be declared an issue of human rights and got those human rights protected through the lens of climate change. And so we need to do the same thing. So what is the moral imperative? Well, Healthspan. We want everybody to be as healthy as possible. And if all the rich people in Silicon Valley or even in Europe where there are definitely clinics abounding right now, if we can all make use of this technology, the IP that's developed, why can't people in other areas of the world? I actually believe that they should, and I want to organize that effort, and I'm glad, I think I'm going to be followed by Alex, who will talk about that as well. Thank you. And I know I went over a little bit, but if there, yes.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Yep.
It's not a question, it's a very brief comment concerning the clinical trials in general, the laws concerning the right to try in various countries. Yeah. We should try with people like Karl Pfleger, Richard Barker, you and me and others to have one website, well, of course, who could be changed about all laws because it's changing everywhere, every time. Yeah, that's it.
Constantly changing. I'd love to work with you on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One more applause for Melissa.